Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. This is episode 266, and it's that time of year again.
What time of year is that then?
Where we look ahead to Le Mans.
Le Mans.
The 24 hours of Le Mans. This is our preview. It's on the 14th and 15th of June. And yeah, I mean, in this episode, I want to preview the race, the sort of sporting side of Le Mans.
Yes.
Because it looks like it's going to be a good one. But
I think it could be exceptional.
It could be. It really could be. I also want to talk about the entire week, the build-up, the trip from the point of view of the spectator travelling to the track.
Yes. I hope that all of you are going. I hope that at least some of you are going. And those of you who aren't going, I hope that you've been before.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't and you're not, you're missing something.
If you're going, maybe save this episode for the drive on the way down to get you in the spirit of things. But let's start with the sort of the sporting side of Le Mans. Because do you remember, it was only, I don't know, a few years ago when there was a single manufacturer,
Toyota,
works manufacturer competing in the top class, Toyota, and it was pretty much nailed on that they were going to win.
And even though they tried to apply all the balance of performance, limitations, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Now
we've got 8 manufacturers competing in the top class: Aston Martin, Porsche, Toyota, Ferrari, Cadillac, BMW, Alpine, Peugeot.
I mean, that's bonkers.
And who's missing from that? I mean, maybe Audi, but
Bentley are the one to me which are absolutely. Yeah, that's the glaring omission.
We know McLaren will be in there.
McLaren will this year announce that they will be there, I presume, next year or maybe 27.
Don't know, but they're coming.
McLaren are coming. Yeah.
It's something else, isn't it? And it's because this new hypercar class.
It's because, let's be honest about this, it's because it has become an affordable thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, the cars aren't quite as quick as they used to be, but nobody's out there with speed traps measuring the speed of the car. It's all about the spectacle, and having 8 manufacturer cars, proper works factory teams, knocking lumps out of each other for 24 hours. It could be amazing. That said, Ferrari has won every race so far this season.
And the last 2 Le Mans. So you'd have to say they're quite strong. But maybe, and I've whinged about the balance of performance so many times in this podcast, I'm not going to do it again now, but maybe that will be reflected in the BOP that they get this year. It could well be. I mean, but that's the point of BOP, isn't it? Is to level the playing field and keep it unpredictable.
That's certainly the intention of BOP. Sometimes the system can be gamed by a manufacturer, for instance, and we know this has happened in the past, deliberately sandbagging in the build-up to the race to the extent that even in races earlier in the season, they've not given a true idea of how fast they could go, getting a very favourable BOP, and then suddenly going, 3 seconds a lap faster than they've ever been. And we've seen that in the past. So, yes, if it's applied properly, that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's meant to level the playing field so that everybody, in theory at least, has a chance of winning. Equal opportunity.
I mean, we have frustrations with balance of performance. The thing for me is that I don't know if what I'm watching is the fastest drivers in the fastest car doing the best job, or if I'm watching, the team that had the most favourable balance of performance.
The problem is, if they just said, okay, so off you go, guys, these are the rules, and may the best man / team win, you get Porsche in the 1980s.
Yeah.
That's what happens. From 81 to 87, those 7 races, Porsche won every single one. And fair play to them, but that's what happens. And I think the ACO and the FIA would argue that's not what the spectator wants to see. And you and I are the first, particularly when we talk about Formula One, to say, there are all these manufacturers and teams all plotting together to come up with, things which suit their ulterior interest, like road cars or fizzy drinks to sell or whatever. What about the poor spectator? What Balance of Performance does, however much you and I may criticize it, however much you and I may, in theory, actually regret its necessity, what it does, or what it should do, is actually provide exactly what the paying punter wants to see, which is close, competitive motor racing. That's why, although I hate the idea of Balance of Performance, and I said this before, I'd have it in Formula One. If you had, two engine formulas, so the manufacturers could have their tedious V6 hybrids, and the proper race teams could have their naturally aspirated V10s.
Let it happen.
And I'd just balance the performance between them.
Yeah, just let it happen.
It's the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. So who's looking good for the win at Le Mans this year? You have to say Ferrari. That is the form team. But it's hard to know because it does come down to the balance of performance, how that's calculated. Aston Martin, so far pointless in the World Endurance Championship. The car hasn't been competitive, the Valkyrie.
No. But whose side the crowd's going to be on, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
You just do. You just know that, the hordes of Brits, the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands who pour over the channel and make their way down to Le Mans. It's going to be like Jaguar in the 1980s. Aston Martin, and let's not forget, okay, it's a fairly esoteric road car, but it is the only car in that category.
It is.
Which is based on something which is entitled to wear a number plate. And I think that's a hugely important point. So if there's a moral victory, I think Aston Martin have already won the race.
It'll be the best sounding hypercar.
Yeah.
With the naturally aspirated V12.
Yes. There's going to be so much. The Aston Martin merch store is going to get absolutely rammed.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But selling a load of T-shirts and caps and claiming a moral victory, that's not why Aston Martin's there.
No.
They do want to try and win the thing, don't they? Surely.
Of course they do. Of course they do. But I don't think that they have to. Allow me to explain. When Porsche decided to go back to Le Mans in the early part of the last decade, the pressure on them to perform the 919 was so immense because when Porsche goes to Le Mans, it wins. Fact is, Aston Martin have won Le Mans once, and it was 67 years ago. So no one is expecting the Valkyries to, even to win, let alone sweep the board. The fact that they are there is enough for now. Now, I don't know how long that program is, but if in 3 years' time it's still not troubling the podium, then people will begin to go, okay, so we've been here before. So do you remember when they had the Lola Aston Martin?
Yeah, I do.
Great, fabulous car.
V12
also
again.
V12.
Yeah. Amazing sounding car, and it looked gorgeous as well.
And this wasn't the car's fault, but its great tragedy was it didn't have a diesel engine in it.
Yeah.
Goodness. How, I was about to use a rude word, how messed up is it that a car like that doesn't win Le Mans with a naturally aspirated V12 because it hasn't got a turbocharged diesel engine in it?
That was a weird time, wasn't it?
That was a weird time, and I'm very, very pleased that it's over. That was my most disillusioned period of time with that race. I think this year it's already achieved its goals. I think there'll be people wearing Aston Martin. Can you imagine how papaya the whole village is going to get when McLaren turn up?
Yeah, very much so.
They're going to go nuts because they're doing Formula One now. The McLaren F1 merch store at Formula One races sells more stuff than.
Really?
I believe so. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm immensely excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
The naturally aspirated V12 engine back at Le Mans. It'll just be like the Group C Jaguar era.
I'd like to see Alpine do well, and they went well at Spa.
They did
in the last WEC round. Who else deserves to go well?
I'd like BMW to do well just because they had such a nightmare last year.
Yeah.
I think
you spent a bit of time with them, didn't you?
I did, yeah, absolutely. Less time than I hope to spend with them because by the end of it, it had gone so badly for them. some of it self-inflicted, some of it absolutely not self-inflicted. That they just basically shut up shop and said, we're not going to be communicating anymore, which I completely understood. Great looking car. I'd like them to do well. More than anything else, I would just like to come away thinking there's been a hell of a fight and that ultimately the best team won. And there wasn't any funny business or... so who else? I mean, Cadillac? I mean, it'd be great if Peugeot did well in France. I mean, that car is slowly coming on, isn't it?
I actually would like Toyota to win one when there's some serious competition. Maybe not this one, because they've got a few recent victories under their belt. But it would be nice if at some point during the hypercar era, with all these other manufacturers, Toyota won at least one, because they propped up the top category at Le Mans when no one else was interested.
Porsche.
Yeah.
They've got 4 cars in the race, 3 factory cars, 1 private car. They've not performed so far this season, but it's Porsche and it's Le Mans, and the rules are different. We know how quick that car has gone. It went very quickly last year. Maybe.
So it's 20-something cars in the top category, which is great. 17 cars in LMP2, including a friend of ours.
Yes. Just a quick shout out to Francois Perodo, who is a friend of ours, who is competing in his 13th consecutive Le Mans in the Pro-Am category. In those 13 races, I think he's been on the podium in his class 5 times, won it twice, including last year. But the reason I'm mentioning him now is he has quite rightly, in my view, been awarded the Spirit of Le Mans award, which is something that the authorities at the race give out to the person who, I guess the clue's in the title, isn't it? It is the person who best encapsulates all that's great about the spirit of that race and his dedication to it, the way he goes racing, probably the fact that he is an amateur, still duking it out with the top teams in the LMP2 category. And I just want to say, on behalf of TI Francois, good luck. I'll be there to see you. I'll come and say hello, and well done.
Yeah, brilliant. Have a good race. And so LMGT3 class, 26 cars in that class. So again, multiple different manufacturers. Several of the manufacturers that are competing in the hypercar category, plus Corvette, McLaren, Mercedes, Lexus, Mercedes, first time there's been a Mercedes in the race in, I think, 26 years.
And there are like 4 of them in there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Lexus and Ford. So these are privateer teams or maybe work-supported teams. But that's a really good, healthy mix of different cars in that category as well. What is the LMGT3 class like? I mean, because they replaced the GTE cars that were, by the end, bloody serious machines.
Well, the GTE car, I mean, so serious that, Porsche made a mid-engine 911.
Yeah.
That was the level. I mean, I've said this on the podcast before. I went to Vallelunga to drive the RSR 19, which is the last Porsche 911 factory-developed works racing car, the mid-engine car. And I can remember saying to whoever the team boss was, show me the parts in this car, which are the same as on a road car. And he pointed to the cover for the rear lights, and then he pointed at the badge, and then he went back to the badge and he said, maybe, he wasn't sure.
So it's a prototype.
So it's a prototype. Whereas GT3s are not prototypes.
Yeah.
They are genuinely derived from road cars, although massively developed. I mean, the aero those cars are developing now is absolutely extraordinary. But it is nevertheless true to the spirit of Le Mans, which is that, in that category, it should be road car derived. And I think you're right, the GTE class had gone so far from that as to effectively become a silhouette category.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It really was. So there you go, 3 different classes, hypercars, LMP2, LMGT3. There are some fantastic drivers. I mean, Le Mans, as much as anything, for professional racing drivers in the sports car scene, Le Mans just mega for them these days, isn't it? Mm-hmm. With all those manufacturers in the top category, presumably paying good money. And there are some brilliant names. Literally the world's best sports car racers.
Yes.
And then you got the likes of Jenson Buttons there again, and there's just some top names, and a lot of British interest as well among the drivers.
Yes, I mean, I think most of the top teams have at least one British driver in them. I mean, Nick Tandy's in there for Porsche. James Collado is doing unbelievably well in the Ferrari.
Yeah.
They've all got one, haven't they? Yeah.
It's just
so much to look forward to.
It's a brilliant time.
I'm so excited about that race.
Yeah. I can tell. Okay, so we're going to talk about everything around the race as well. Because I often think that for the spectators, it's a boozy weekend away in your car with the lads, and there's a motor race going on as well. It does sometimes work out that way, doesn't it? But we'll come to that, because I want to talk a little bit about the intercooler. Because something you said to me earlier today, people so often, if we're doing an event at Bicester or something, people will so often come up to us and say, I love the intercooler, it's really good. Yeah. And we'll say, oh, what do you like about it? And they talk about this, the podcast.
They say, well, it's just you and Dan on the podcast. We just like what you do. And we think, well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But
this is a very, very small part of what we do for the intercooler.
Very small part of what we do.
So the intercooler, really, when we talk about the intercooler, we're talking about our online magazine, which is
our multi-award-winning online magazine,
ad-free, and it's available on our website and on our app. And there's nothing like it. There is nothing out there like it. No one else is doing an ad-free online car magazine. No one else publishes articles the way that we do. No one else has the writer lineup that we do.
No. We've said before, and still no one has contradicted us, that it is the greatest lineup of writers writing for any automotive media anywhere in the world.
And it's not just you and I. We've got, 10 or 15 regular writers, contributors, who are either the top journalists literally in the world, the top automotive journalists in the world, or they're experts from the car industry, designers, engineers, drivers, just a brilliant group of people.
And the idea behind it was, we just thought that there was space in the market because nobody was doing it for a form of automotive publication that publishes stories of the kind that you would hope to find in a quarterly magazine, but to do it online every single day of the working week. So every day at 7 o'clock in the morning, a new story goes up, written by one of our contributors, one of the finest writers in their fields in the world. And you don't have to wait a month or a quarter of a year. They're new ones every single day. And that was the idea behind it. That is what has gained it so much, if I say so myself, acclaim. And it's what makes us get up in the morning and be so proud and happy to do it, because it was unique. Excuse me. It remains unique. There is nothing else like it out there. So if you just think we're a podcast, just go and have a look on the-intercooler.com, and you'll just see that actually, love doing this though we do, it is such a small component. And if you love automotive media, if you grew up as I did reading car magazines, but maybe you just don't have the time, or you don't want to wait for the next one to come around, just have a look at the Intercooler, because we exist for people like you. It's that simple.
And I know a lot of you know all this stuff, and our subscribers certainly know all this stuff, but you'll appreciate that it's important that we continue getting the message out there. We need to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And TI had its best ever year last year, and I think it'll be better this year. We're making really strong progress all the time, and it's thanks to people who do subscribe.
Well, yeah, we just had our best ever month.
Yeah, we have. That's right. So that's how things are going for us. And that's right. And last month we did release a package of upgrades that means that our subscribers, they can now listen to this podcast totally ad-free, and they can do it via whichever podcast app they prefer. So if you use Spotify all the time, subscribe to the Intercooler via our app or website, and every time we do a new episode of this podcast, it'll appear in your podcast feed ad-free. You can also watch our videos ad-free. There's a midweek podcast, a new midweek podcast that's only for subscribers called Ask the Intercooler, where Andrew and I answer your questions. And one of the really interesting innovations is that our award-winning articles are now available in audio form, so you can listen to those via whichever podcast app you use normally. Each morning they'll appear and you can listen to one of our brilliant articles. It's a good innovation. People are really enjoying it. It's only available to our subscribers. So there will be a link in the description, in the show notes, or just head to the-intercooler.com. And as an additional sweetener, if you choose an annual subscription and use coupon code POD20 at checkout, you'll get 20% off for the first year. So if you've been meaning to check it out, now's the time to do it. Click the link in the show notes, or as I said, the-intercooler.com, and check it out.
One last thing. Our annual subscribers. So if you subscribe, people who have subscribed to us on an annual basis and who take up the subscription after their 1 month free trial, 96% of them subscribe again a year later, which I expect is unprecedented in that field. And that just goes to show that when people do find out about us, they want to stay with us. And I know that sounds terribly boastful, and I know that we're British and not meant to do that sort of thing, but I just thought that was, of all the sort of stats that we could tell you about, circulation and numbers and that sort of thing, that's the one which I think, to me, is the most powerful, because it just shows that when people find us, they like us and they want to stay with us. And hopefully, if you do have a look, you'll see why.
Okay, so back to Le Mans.
Back
to Le Mans. Literally back to Le Mans for you in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
What are your plans for the weekend?
As they always are. So there's always a balance to strike, because I think that there's a sort of romance to the idea of going down to Le Mans and, staying up all night and doing this, that and the other. But actually, it's a fairly good way to ruin the race for yourself, because, by 4 o'clock on Sunday morning, you're totally exhausted and the race is only half gone.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be doing that. So you've got to be a bit sensible about it, and you've got to find somewhere to park your head for a few hours. And the great news is, if you have the brilliant Radio Le Mans, which you just tune to when you get to the circuit, it'll always keep you up to speed. And so even if you miss a couple of hours somewhere along the line, it doesn't take long to work out what's gone on. So yes, I'm going to travel down, and I just look forward to the whole razzmatazz. I like going to the big driver parade in the town. If you can do that. I mean, the traffic is appalling and you can't park anywhere, and I quite understand that people didn't want to do that, but it's just a wonderful event to be part of. You don't want to just spend all. I mean, there is a constituency of people, particularly Brits, who go down there and seem to be oblivious to the fact that there's a motor race going on, yeah. And all they want to do is sit in the bars in the village and see how much they can drink. And you can, come sort of 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, you can find their bodies parked in various ditches, or staggering around, sunburnt, nursing the world's worst hangovers. Not the way I mean, to be fair, I have done that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I was young and foolish once, and I think if you've never done it, it's quite a funny thing to do. But if you want to get the most out of the event, you've got to pace yourself, and you've got to be a bit strategic about it. I think it's a wonderful thing to do with friends. I think one of the few sadnesses that I have about it is, I've gone the vast majority of years for the last, 88 was my first, whatever that is, 37 years. But it's almost always been a working gig, which is fine. But what it means is, you're spending a long time trackside on your own, which is very different to being there with your mates. Or maybe you're in the press room filing copy or whatever. So it's not quite the fully immersive experience it would be if you're a spectator. So if you can go with friends, then absolutely do. And I think that those people who enjoy it the most are the people who get organised, go down with a few friends, maybe in some silly cars or whatever, make something of the journey down.
I wanted to ask about this. Ideally, would you just bomb down the auto route?
Ideally, I mean, I do just bomb down the auto route because I never have any time. And in my head, because, I am usually on my own and it's a working gig, I think those experiences are so great when they're shared But actually, if you're so time constrained, you just need to get there, sort out your accreditation or whatever, and then just start working. I'm trying. It sounds like I'm trying to make people feel sorry for me for don't at all. But if I could do it my way, what I would do is instead of doing Dover Calais on the train and then just getting on the dual carriageway and driving down, be very careful if you're doing this, because the police know you're coming.
They're waiting for you.
They are waiting for you. So I just do 130 k's the whole way. Because it's the last thing you need.
That's K's, everyone.
K's, yes. But if I could do it, I'd do it with a bunch of mates. I'd take the overnight ferry to Caen or to Le Havre or even St Malo, and then I would work out a lovely circuitous route. I'd probably go in something nice, but not necessarily that quick. I mean, it'd be a lovely thing to do in an MX-5 or
I would, yeah.
Or some old car. And I would find a nice restaurant. I just make them. I mean, if you could take a couple of days over it, then just do that. And because northern France is beautiful. There are wonderful places to visit and things to eat and to drink and so on and so forth. And I would just make it into a proper occasion, of which the focus, but nevertheless just one component of is this rather large race that happens in the middle of it, and just immerse yourself in it.
Is Mad Friday still a thing?
Where everyone goes nuts, spinning their wheels.
Yeah.
No, I think the police have stopped it.
It was utterly chaotic. So I first went in 2008 in a Corvette when I was 21, and it was utterly chaotic when you got anywhere near the circuit. You just got mobbed, and you had to do burnouts everywhere.
Yes,
it was insane.
I think when you and I went down, I can't remember how many years ago, we went down together in a DBS Aston.
Yeah.
Did we do it then?
Any burnouts?
Yeah.
No.
So maybe they'd stopped it by then.
I think that's probably true, but it was it was nuts.
I can remember going down in an NSX and doing it.
Yeah.
And they stand in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And they won't let you past.
No.
Until you've dialed up 8,000 and dropped the clutch.
Yeah. It's insane.
I've got a funny feeling something happened. I don't know this, but I think maybe someone got injured or something.
Honestly, it was waiting to happen. It was just inevitable.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe don't participate in all that stuff. But so once the race is on, what's the strategy? Where's the best place to watch? How far should you walk around the circuit? And when?
I always think that people don't watch enough racing, and I think the reason they don't watch enough racing is the places that you can get to easily aren't the best places to watch.
That is true.
From.
It's true. Yeah.
So if you're just if you've got a grandstand ticket and you're on the pit straight, once you've seen a few cars go vroom, because they come out of the full chicane, which is the slowest corner on the circuit, just about, come past on the pit straight and then disappear up towards the Dunlop Bridge. It's not very exciting. No. And so everybody tries to go up to the Dunlop Bridge to watch the start. Because, things do tend to happen there because cars have to go from, there are quite a few of them, and they have to go from very fast to very slow in not much space. But what that means is the crowds are 20 deep and you can often not see very much. What I tend to do is watch the race from somewhere accessible. I've often, sadly, in the past, just watched it from the press box for obvious working reasons. But then, I like to spend the sort of the early evening down at Tertre Rouge, which you can get to, which is a bit of a walk, but it's not mad. And that's where the cars flick right at bonkers speeds onto the Mulsanne Straight. There's great spectator viewing banks there. You get a really good view of the cars coming down out of the S's and up towards Tertre Rouge and going through the corner and then heading off, howling off. And there's something like with the Valkyrie there, the noise it's going to make as it exits Tertre Rouge and gets onto the straight. I find that absolutely captivating. So I do that. Then after that, I will probably wander back to the village. When I say I don't go down with mates, I don't, but there are always mates there because we do what we do, and there are, and I have friends who go, and I can't be part of what they do because I haven't got the time and I'm on a working trip, but they'll still be there. And there are other motoring journalists who you meet up with, and someone more organised than me will usually, put a WhatsApp group together and say, see you in this bar at this time. And so you can go and have a few beers with your mates, and maybe grab something to eat. And then you get into the small hours, and that is the time to be going around the circuit, to be getting on the shuttle buses.
Tell me about can you just jump on one, or do you need a?
Well, again, I'm not the right man to ask, because I've always gone down there, as a journalist, and there are special provisions, often manufacturer supplied buses which take you around. But yes, I believe you can. Well, there have to be, because there are great viewing areas down at Mulsanne, and even better ones at Arnage.
Yeah.
And those are the two places that I would really, if you only have to go to one, go to Arnage. Because you can see the cars come honking through Indianapolis and then down towards Arnage. And that is a wonderful, wonderful place to watch the race. And I would do that all in the night. And then my particular ritual, which nobody else does, and I think they are missing such a trick, but it's a long way to walk, is to be at the Porsche curves when the sun comes up.
Yeah.
At sort of 5 o'clock in the morning. Because the cars have been running for a long time then. A lot of them are battle scarred. A lot of them are already showing signs of distress. And they're still coming through that combination at just such massive speeds. And it's a very, I was about to say emotional, and maybe I would say emotional. It tugs at a part of you that you doesn't normally get tugged at during a motor race, because there's a heroic quality to what you are seeing. Which you won't see in a Formula One race, where the car's just going round and round and around a rather short circuit 70 times in the course of an hour and a half, then everyone going home. By the time the sun is up, the cars are also going really fast, because the air is cold and dense and the engines love it. They've already been out there for well over 12 hours, and it's just wonderful.
Well, the drivers talk about it as well, sunrise in a 24-hour race. That's a special moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And so, talking of the drivers then, I want to try and understand the circuit a bit more. Because it's not a permanent racetrack. Bits of it are, a very small section of it is. The rest of it is public road.
Yeah, so the bit from, as it used obviously all to be public road. So the bit from, if you go around the circuit in the same direction as the race traffic is, when you enter the Porsche curves, that's when you go onto a purpose-built racetrack. And excuse me. And that now takes you up past, through the Fort Chicanes, down the pit straight, under the Dunlop Bridge, down to the S's and up to Tertre Rouge. And it's when you come out of Tertre Rouge and then back and then onto the Mulsanne Straight that you're on public roads.
Yeah.
And all of the Mulsanne Straight, apart from the chicanes, is public road. And then that entire run from Mulsanne down towards Indianapolis, through Arnage, and then back towards the Porsche curves is all public road still.
So, but drivers particularly, they seem to love the track. It's long, it's 8 miles or something, isn't it?
Yeah, 8 and a bit miles.
But they really, really love the circuit. We had Darren Turner on a few months ago, and he's won the GTE class 3 times, I think. He's raced there a lot. And he said it took him a while to really appreciate the track. But now it's sort of become one of his favourites, because it just seems to be a proper driver's circuit.
It's very old school. You can still have big accidents there. If the Formula One lot looked at it, they'd be horrified.
Yeah.
It is different to any other track, even to a track that is longer, like the Nürburgring, because there is no place like it because of its combination of the length of the circuit and the speed of the circuit. So Spa as an average speed probably isn't that much different, but it's half the length.
Yeah.
The Nürburgring is even longer, but the Nürburgring isn't a very fast circuit, and would be actually quite a slow circuit if it didn't have the Dottinger-Höhe Straight. So there is nowhere that combines speed and distance like a lap of Le Mans. Its characteristics are, I think, unique, certainly on the circuits that I've raced at, because almost all of it is that most challenging combination of things, which is a fast corner going into a slow corner. From the very start of the lap, when you come through that curve at the end of the pit straight, and all you're actually thinking about is, how the hell am I going to get this thing stopped for Dunlop? Because the car is already absolutely on the limit. And, cars that are already on the limit don't much appreciate having their brakes slammed on, particularly if it's for a corner that's in the other direction to the one that you're travelling in. And there's so much of the course. So, so you go down through the S's, and they're a bit like that. And then, particularly a corner like Indianapolis, one of the epic corners, the right-hander, it's usually sort of like a gear down from whatever you're in, from whatever your top speed is. So you're coming into it as fast as the car will go. It's actually now, the approach to Indianapolis is, because of the chicanes, is now the fastest part of the circuit. So the cars will go faster there than they will on the Mulsanne straight. And then you've got this not quite flat right, followed immediately by a very slow left. And again, in the Porsche curves, the Porsche curves, they came in I'm just trying to think, 72 maybe, when the old White House corner was deleted from the circuit, which is still there. You can still drive through it because that is still on the public road. And the Porsche curves are so incredibly challenging because each one is just a tiny bit slower than the one before. And so, you're always on the limit as they swoop. I can't remember the actual combination because it's so long since I've been through them. But I think it's, it's right, left, right, left, right, left, or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're having to shed speed all the way through it. And what it means is that if you make a little mistake early on, it gets multiplied. And you can find yourself all out of shape by the end of it. And the circuit has a character that I have not found anywhere else, and there's nowhere that I feel more. And I've been incredibly lucky. I've raced at some amazing places, but I think if I could go back and do one more race somewhere, in fact, the most recent race I did was there in the Classic in 2003, and there is nothing. 23. Yeah, there is nothing quite like being out there.
Just looking at the circuit map, it is unbelievable that right up until, was it 90? They've raced with no chicanes on the Mulsanne.
Yes.
It's just staggering. Yes. And they were doing 250 some cars down
One
there.
did. Yeah. One did. So Roger Dorchy in the WM Peugeot P88, I think it was, in 1988, did 407 kilometres, which I think is 252. But that wasn't a car which was built
for
do
it.
that.
Yeah. But 240 wasn't unusual, was it?
Oh no, absolutely not. No, and well, in fact, in the late 80s, the Porsches and the Jaguars were all doing that.
Just extraordinary.
I can remember Andy Wallace, who obviously won the race in 1988 with a Jaguar.
Yeah.
Him telling me that they knew they got the gearing of the car right when just before the kink, which isn't a corner anymore because it's too close to a chicane. But back then, absolutely was a corner, albeit flat, which is towards the end of the straight. He'd be going down there in the XJR 9LM at 240-something miles an hour. And just before the kink, the change-up light in fifth would come on. Car's only got 5 gears. And then he'd go through the kink, and because of the scrub on the tyres, the change-up light would go off. And then he'd carry on, and just before braking for Mulsanne, the change-up light would come back on again. And that's how he knew that the car was perfectly geared for that circuit.
Do you think that, so the kink at the end of the Mulsanne, before the chicane era, was it a sort of easy flat but scary because it's so fast, or was it a touch and go?
I think it had become easy flat.
Yeah.
I had lunch with my old mate Richard Atwood about 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about driving a 917 through there. And this was in 1969. This was when the 917 was completely undeveloped and very, very, very not stable. And he was saying that in everything else he'd ever gone through therein, which are things like Porsche 908s and GT40s and that sort of thing, he said it wasn't just flat, it was easy flat. I mean, I think that's racing drivers easy flat, which to you or me is probably, oh my God, shut your eyes, take a breath. But to professionals, I think it was easy flat. And him saying in the 917, it was anything but.
Oh, just imagine every single lap you're coming up to it thinking it's that corner again.
So the car is already wandering. The car is already wandering around the straight.
Yeah.
And he said what you had to do was, as the kink approached, you basically lifted a bit just to get a little bit of weight transference forward.
Yeah.
Just to get the car sort of slightly on its nose, because that's what made it turn. And then you turned, and then you got back on the power. And then you got through. And a 917. I mean, I think even those early 917s were doing late 230s, down there.
Yeah.
And they only got faster, I think, by 1971, which was the last year they ran there. The long-tail 5-litre cars would have been doing over 240.
Oh, my goodness me. And so I didn't realise, now that we have the chicanes, and we have done for a long time, the run from Mulsanne to Indianapolis is actually faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
I mean, not much.
No.
Mile an hour or two, but the top speed, by my understanding, is the top speed is reached there, not on the straight.
And looking at the circuit map, you can see, as you described it, so Indianapolis is quite a tight left-hander.
But with a big right. But it's like St Mary's at Goodwood.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So you come honking down a really, really the fastest bit of track, and there's a sort of kinky right thing.
Yeah, which is absolutely not flat.
No,
I mean that's a gear change.
Is it a brake though?
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know because I've never raced a car with downforce there, but certainly in the stuff that I've raced there, it's a brake and a down change. But still,
that looks scary.
It's only like fifth to the fourth. It's still
yeah.
It might still be a 3-figure corner even in something old.
Oh,
so something new. It's still I don't know 130, 140 mile an hour corner maybe. I don't know.
So this all explains why drivers love Le Mans Circuit de la Sarthe, because it's just so ballsy by the sounds of it. I've been round, but only in a road car and only once.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really give you much
honestly,
of an impression.
I mean, the other thing is, which you just don't get at other circuits is the night.
Yeah.
And there's the bit of the track which runs from Mulsanne down to the Porsche curves and through Indianapolis. Indeed, so let's say from Mulsanne to Indianapolis, it's basically straight, but it's anything but straight. There's nothing that you need to brake for, but there are two crests with curves on them, which you absolutely need to line up. And certainly the second of them, if you're in something, old but quite powerful, as I have been in on a couple of occasions in the past, they require a bit of thought. And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and you're going down there. And that is when the history of the place comes back to you, because that is the least changed part of the circuit. That bit really hasn't changed since the early 1920s. And you're out there in some amazing classic car that does not belong to you. And you're just, while at the same time trying to race a car, and maybe there's some other competitors around you, you are just soaking up that moment of being in that car at that place at that time of night. And it is, that really is an emotional experience. That really is, I can't quite believe I'm doing this. That is something that you would never, ever forget about having done.
Yeah.
And it is utterly magical. And it completely transcends the fact that you happen to be in a motor race.
Yeah. Wow. It does sound mega. So there we go, our Le Mans preview. Now, if you're going down for the weekend, have a great time, enjoy it. Maybe tweet us a photo or put a photo on your Instagram stories and we'll share the best ones. Have a brilliant time.
Pace yourself.
Yeah. It's a long week.
Get some sleep.
Yeah.
Use Radio Le Mans.
Yeah, absolutely do.
Don't spend too much money in the village unless it's something that you really need, because it's quite expensive in there.
Okay.
If you're buying, clothing or whatever. It always rains at Le Mans at some stage.
Yeah.
So pack for that. And just have the best time.
Yeah. And if you're racing, my God, what a privilege. But good luck and enjoy it.
Stay safe. Go well.
Stay safe, absolutely. And let's hope it's a cracking race like we're anticipating. All right, we'll wrap that one up there. Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you for watching. All I'll say now is just remember to follow the show or subscribe to this YouTube channel. We really do appreciate it. And in return, we'll be back again next week.
See you then.